Keep it real simple, keep it real simple. Bring everything right back to ground zero. Cause it all comes down to this: love God and love people. We're living in a world that keeps breaking, but if we wanna find a way to change it, it all comes down to this: love God and love people.
Well, good morning, Simple Church. Nothing like a fire alarm to start off the day, right? So my head is not necessarily in this at the moment because I had to go down and reset it. We're having a little issue with the smoke and the haze in here. We say more haze, more praise, and apparently it does not work with the fire alarm at the moment. So just forgive me, because my job here at the Simple Church, for you guys who don't know me, my name is Chip. I'm the production pastor. So all of the things that happen in this room are my responsibility with light, sound, and video. And I just want to say that I'm really nervous right now. I haven't done this in about 7 years. So it's kind of like I'm trying to be a little bit more vulnerable up here, just because today I'm talking about something that's really, really important to me in my own life. And my emotions are probably going to be like right about here. So if I start crying, don't worry, it's totally fine. Because my wife and I had just a weird week with with a family that was going through a death situation, and so we're just kind of had that one of those funky weeks. It's like, but hey, I'm not okay. That's okay. That's what we're talking about this morning. But before we get started, I just want to say to all of my media team, and this is where my emotion comes in, is they do a fantastic job every week preparing and doing this. All the production guys and girls that make this happen, we couldn't do it without them, and I'm so proud to be able to be part of their team and lead their team. They're all very dear to my heart, and I just wanted to have that opportunity to say thank you to them and do that. So, all that being said, last week Justin has talked about something in his sermon called anxiety, and there's a chart that he put up on screen, and it said, hey, this is the amount of anxiety that's increasing in the culture here and what's going on now. And I was like, well, I'm glad he put that up here, because I'm talking about today worry and anxiety, which if you could see inside me right now, it's full of worry, anxiety right now, and that's just because that's my nature and that's who I am, and that's my job. Is to think about like the worst case scenario and just about everything, especially when you're trying to work with all this technology and stuff. So I think everybody can relate to it in some degree. We're all worried about something, and it affects us all in some way. We worry about our money, we worry about our job, we worry about kids. If you have aging parents, you worry about them. You worry about the future. Sometimes we worry about what our past looks like. And so worry is just there. And here's the thing that I've learned about worry is worthless. It can't change the past. It can't control the future. It only wastes the moment. And you can get so worried about things in your life that you kind of forget that there's a person that's standing right in front of you or where you are at the moment when you're thinking about things that you can't control. And that's what worry and anxiety does. It just steals from you. It steals your life from you. And so we're going to talk about this morning. And let me ask you a couple questions. Can worry add 1 hour to your life? Nope. Do you think worry has taken an hour off of your life? If you're a Yankees and a Tiger fan, yes. And yes, I'm wearing this. It didn't work out again last night, but hey, we're in the World Series. It works out. But I tried to watch both games last night, and I was doubly worried and anxious, and didn't work out both ways. So, hey, there it goes. Now here's my last question. Has worry enhanced anything that you value more than life? No. See, Jesus asked the same questions, and I really am going to look at these words from Jesus this morning, and there's a lot of wisdom on this subject, and today he has a lot of wisdom and stuff to give to us, and I want to take a look at it. And where I'm going to be in today the whole time is Matthew 6. And I want to talk to you about Matthew for just a second. In the gospel according to Matthew, Matthew was a tax collector. If you know anything about the tax collectors in that time in history, They were the lowest of the low. They were taking taxes for the Roman Empire from their own people, so they were hated. And so this guy, Matthew, was a disciple of Jesus, and he writes this gospel according to what he experienced with Jesus. And there's a part in Matthew where it comes to chapters 5, 6, and 7, where there are the most famous teachings of Jesus, and that's on the Sermon on the Mount. And I would encourage anyone, if you want to know Jesus the most, go read 5, 6, and 7, because you're going to find the greatest teachings that he ever gave us for our lives in those sections. And we're going to kind of really focus down on Matthew 6, which is where Jesus is talking about us living in right relationships with other people, and also how we're living in right relationships with God and according to our stuff. Because our stuff, I think, internally and externally makes us worry. It makes us be anxious. It makes us take our eyes off of God. So Jesus, in this part, in Matthew 6, he gives us this. Jesus gives us a teaching, a riddle, a parable, and a poem. And Brian Reed will only get this joke. This is Jesus' 3 points in a poem, okay? So if you were thinking about what Jesus is talking about, these are some great things that he's teaching us. So we're going to talk about how our relationship with God and our stuff affects our relationship with God. So we're going to start with the first one. It's the teaching. So this is what it says in Matthew 6. Don't store up for yourself wealth on the land where moth and nibbler can ruin, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourself stored wealth in the sky, where neither moth nor nibbler can ruin, and where thieves can't break in and steal. For where your store of wealth is, there your heart will be also. And this is such a beautiful teaching. And if you really kind of break it down, I'm going to go back and read a little bit here because I have it right here in my notes, is that when you think about land stuff, storing up wealth, stored up things, putting our stuff, and it's like we want to gather all this stuff and we want to get all this stuff, and all of a sudden we're trying to gather stuff and it becomes a losing battle. The land stuff is a losing battle because stuff breaks. Money, banks can fail. In fact, if you think about it, there are sometimes in any culture or in history that currency has just ceased to exist. It's not valuable anymore. And so what Jesus is saying here is like, hey, listen, don't store up for yourself here on the land where moth and nibbler can take it and thieves can steal it. But store up for yourself sky stuff. Now, what's sky stuff? Sky stuff is great stuff. Sky stuff looks the opposite of storing up stuff on the land, because sky stuff, you gain it by caring for the well-being of others, serving in the name of Jesus, and loving your neighbor. Think about that. That's stuff that no one can steal. That's stuff that's in your heart that is richer than anything that we can have in our lives. And Jesus is saying, hey, listen, if you want to have life, you need to store up sky stuff. Store up the sky stuff. Care for your neighbor. Care for others. Think about the person in front of you. And then he finishes this off by saying, for where your store wealth is, there your heart is also. And I started thinking about that, and I started thinking about, have you ever been like on a tall building and you like look out the window and you're feeling like you're pulled? You know, like this pull, like, oh, I feel like I'm fixing to fall over. So sometimes people have a severe fear of heights. And I started thinking about my brother, and I have a picture of him here. This is my brother. And basically, if you were worked over at the theater, he was my stunt double because everybody confused us. They called him Chip for like a year, you know, because they would just see him and then they think it was him. But My brother and hopefully one day I can tell that story because it's a great story to tell, but my brother and I, when we were growing up, we liked to climb trees. And I found a picture here of what was kind of like us back in the backyard. We liked to climb trees. But see, my brother, he would go to the highest point that he could find in the tree. And so would I. We loved being up high. And we would, in fact, in my job, especially when I was over at the convention center, a lot of my time was spent on top of a 30-foot lift, hanging curtain and doing things with the lighting and things like that. So, like, when I'm up there, I'm not really afraid of the heights. It's not that big of a deal to me. But I can get somebody up there who is, and they're like frozen. But the reason why it doesn't bother me is because when I'm up there, I'm just looking at what's right in front of me. I'm not thinking about what could happen if I fell. I'm just thinking about what I'm doing right in front of me at that point in time. And the hard issue is when something gets our attention, it affects our direction. When we get so focused on what we need to gain, our attention goes straight to that. And so Jesus is saying, when you think about sky stuff, that should be where your attention should lie in your life. And so that's what the first part was, the teaching. And now, then he moves on to this next part. It's the riddle. And I love riddles, but this is a great one. So Jesus says this. He says, the lamp of the body is the eye. So then, if your eye is genuine and generous, your whole body will be radiant. But if your eye is bad and greedy, your whole body will be dark. If the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Yikes. So in the ancient world, this is how the riddle won. In the ancient world, people thought of eyes as sources of light. Okay, that's how they thought. It was like when they looked in somebody's eyes, it would be like looking through a window and you see the energy inside of them. And so what Jesus was saying there is, says, look, if your eye is greedy and, if your eye is greedy and stingy, to Jesus, that person is living in darkness. He's out of touch with reality. He's taking only for themselves. And see, food in that day and age was very scarce. And you know, food and water, you were trying to survive, man. There was none of that was around, not like we have today. And so, like, he was talking about, like, this person is living in such a scarcity mindset that they're just taking for all of themselves. You know, they're taking it for themselves. And so he's saying, look, your eye needs to be good and genuine and generous. And so, like, today when Robin's talking about the Do Good Dollar Day, we're fighting hunger. So I'm asking you to be genuine and generous as you give $1 to fight hunger, because we still live in a culture today where people still need food. And so us as believers, us as people who are trying to live in right relationships with God, us as who are trying to follow Jesus, have your eye be good and genuine and generous, and give $1 today. But here's the thing that I really liked about this verse, is that when Jesus says, if your eye is good and genuine and generous, then your whole body is radiant, full of light. And I thought, how beautiful is a generous person? How beautiful is a generous person? And this summer, I got a chance to go with my family to Juarez, Mexico. And this is my family. That's Isaac, Ali, and Julie. If you've had a toddler or a child probably in the last 17 years that's gone through the toddler room, you probably know who Julie is. But she's worked in there. But that picture I love because we were absolutely filthy. But man, we felt radiant because we were getting to serve people. But there's one other person one story I wanted to tell you guys about that was so radiant. in this situation. And this picture right here is my son and a guy and Jacob. And Jacob's holding the soccer ball. They both play soccer. And, you know, when the kids are down there, we're just having a good time just playing soccer and doing all this. And Jacob, we were going in the last day of the trip, we went to an immigration center. And we were taking food to the immigration center and clothing to the immigration center because these people absolutely have nothing. They have absolutely nothing. And so we were trying to be generous to these people at that point in time and just meet the basic needs. And I don't know if you guys know who, and this is a picture I wanted to show. I'm sorry, I skipped. This picture here is the outside of the immigration center. I don't know if they already showed it. But when Jacob went in there, he was wearing a Messi jersey. I don't know if you know who Messi is. This is a picture of the jersey. Messi is this, most people around the world know who Messi is as a soccer player. And if you're here in the United States and you're around the soccer, you know that name. He's a fantastic striker. They're actually playing in the MLS playoffs right now. But he is so well known, and they sell these jerseys. Well, these jerseys are pretty expensive. Well, Jacob's wearing his jersey, and he's in the immigration center, and they're just giving out food. And just all of a sudden, he's talking and he's engaging with this one young man that's about his age that's right in front of him. And Jacob takes off that jersey and puts it on his back. And I tell you, when I say that, I don't think anybody who was in that room didn't see how radiant that was. Because he got it at that moment in time. So that riddle comes to life. When you're genuine and generous and your eye is full of light, your body becomes radiant. And it was a beautiful picture of that moment. So moving on. The third point is the parable. And it says this: no one can serve two masters. He will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You are not able to serve God and wealth. And I thought I started thinking about this, and like we kind of understand that money it can be such a natural worry for us that we can focus on that, and it becomes something that becomes a master in our life. I think most people understand that, but I think there's so many other masters internally now that we have to deal with. And this one may push at you a little bit, because it pushes at me. But I think about this numbing master that's now. It's numbing master that what I call is that we want to feel good. And talking about I'm not okay, man, I started really kind of thinking about all of this. So I just want to push at you just for a second and think about some of these stats that are happening, that people just want to feel good, especially when it comes to substance abuse. But I think it's more than just substance abuse. I think it's everything that's out there that allows us to escape, to numb, to say, I need to get away for a little bit. But even this stat is that 48.5 million Americans aged 12 and older battled a substance abuse disorder in the past year. 10% of the Americans 12 and older had an alcohol disorder in the past year, and about 27 million Americans or 12 or older battled a drug disorder last year. And what kind of blew me away when I was looking at these statistics, and this one's actually kind of old, it's like 2018, but the marijuana usage now, and I'm not joking, the marijuana usage now is so concerning to society. And look, there's no judgment on anything when it comes to these things. But to push at you is that all these things do is make you numb out, is make you go to this numbing master because you want to feel good. And then there's these two other ones that are real shameful and real, man, it's a It's something that they call Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's two addictions that are the hardest to break when you're trying to go through recovery. And one is sex and the other one is food. Now, on the food addictions, this is the stat, is that studies from the American Psychology Association show that 38% of adults report overeating unhealthy foods in the past month because of stress. Basically, they're doing lines of Oreos. You know, it's sugar, and I'd say that as a joke, but it's really not, because sugar can affect your brain in a dopamine way, just as most powerful as some drugs. You can go and you can eat some Oreos, and man, you feel good for a minute. But over and over and over again, people are, and the reason why food is such a hard habit to break is because you need food to survive. But when we start abusing it and people start having unhealthy relationships with food, then it becomes a master. It's something they use to numb, and then it affects their health in a severe, severe way. The other one is sex. And this one's a very, very shameful, very, very hidden, but I just want to touch on it for just a minute, here's the stat, is that 28,000 people, users, are watching pornography every second. I think that stat is actually kind of low. 64% of men and Christian men and Christian women say they have watched porn at least once in a month. Let me say something about this particular addiction. Accessibility, affordability, and anonymity make this addiction the most hidden addiction in culture, but the most hidden addiction in church, because nobody likes to talk about it. It's very, very shameful. And to get men and women to just even to talk about it is so difficult. And I want to say that in this room right now, if there's 64%, that means that there's somebody in here that's probably struggling with it. And I'm going to ask you to email me if you would like to get better. Because we have groups in this church that are dedicated to trying to figure that out. And I'm just telling you, that is a very, very hidden thing. It's a very personal thing, especially when it comes to sex in general, because there's a lot of shame that comes with that. I could probably be talking about it right now, and there's something that's hitting you in your heart going, ugh, I'm dealing with that, and I don't know anybody to know, and that's his thing. So I get it. But I'm just trying to sit here and tell you that there's help if you'd like to take it. Here's what I heard, and I love this saying, is that if you walk 5 miles into the woods, you have to walk 5 miles to get out of the woods. Well, that's a no-brainer. I mean, yeah, if you walk 5 miles in. But addiction, these little things that go on, it's like you're starting to take 1, 2, 3 steps into the woods. You start numbing out. And then all of a sudden, one day you wake up and you're 5 miles in and your life is in chaos. And so what I'm hoping this morning is if you're there, that my voice to you is, hey, let me help you take the step back out of the woods. Let us as a church help you do that. Because I've heard this statement 100 times. Somebody say, well, I'm drinking alcohol because it takes the edge off. I smoke because it takes the edge off. And it's going to get real uncomfortable here in just a second. But I just want you to go with me for just a second. And I'm going to ask you this question. What is it taking the edge off of? Taking the edge off of what? This numbing master that we bow down to and see in society, what's it taking the edge off of? Well, to kind of go with this point, I think it takes the edge off of this. I was just silent for 1 minute. What did you feel? I think it takes the edge off of the discomfort that we have in our own skin. If you're sitting there and then all of a sudden it's like, why is it quiet? Oh. We have a hard time just sitting with ourselves. We have a hard time just being real with ourselves and listening to ourselves and being in the moment with ourselves. We want to keep going. What's next? No dead air. And when we do that, basically, we're numbing ourselves. So how do you walk out of the woods? You got to be willing to sit with yourself, and you got to be willing to surrender. You got to be willing to surrender and say, you know what? It's time for me to walk out. So what the heck does this have to do with worry, Chip? What does this have to do with worry? And this is the beautiful part. Is that when our focus is on land stuff and our eyes are greedy and stingy and we serve a numbing master, I guarantee you, you'll be worried. You will have anxiety because it will be all about what you can gain and what you can do. And that's what Jesus is talking to us about. But see, Jesus goes and he flips it. He goes, let me just say it this way. Our Savior, my Savior, the person that I follow and I believe says, when our focus is on sky stuff and we let our eyes be genuine and generous and we serve God as our master, our worry will slowly dissipate away. The bottom line is, worry is a faith issue. Do we really believe in what God, is God real? Do we really believe that we can trust God? Do we really believe that we can follow Jesus? And my mind gets the best of me. And when I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this next part, which is the poem, Jesus says all these things, and he brings it back around, and he says, okay, look, you don't think that you can trust me? Just look around you. Just look up in the skies. Look at what I have created. And when I was on a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I got to go to the beach for a little bit, and I was thinking about this, and there's this one verse that's in this poem that says, look at the birds in the air. Do they not sow seed? Do they not harvest? They're not out there doing that. And God provides for them. And I'm out there and I'm looking at this scene, and all of a sudden this pelican, bam, he's going down. He goes in the water, grabs what he needs. Seagulls flying into the water, just getting the food that they need. And I'm like, wow, God, that's the picture that you're trying to see. And so what I wanted to do as we end up today on our time together, I wanted to take the opportunity to read the poem and understand that Jesus is the most important thing to me. Following Jesus is the most important thing to me. And I want you guys and whoever's there in this church to be able to experience that too. Because he has saved my life. And as long as we trust him each day, we can have peace and be able to trust God and not worry. So I'm going to read the poem from Matthew as we close out today. So because of this, I say to you all, don't worry about your life. What will you eat? Or what will you drink? Not even about your body or what you'll put on. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds in the air. They do not sow seed. They don't harvest. They don't gather into barns. And yet your Father in the skies feeds them. aren't you so much more valuable than they are? And who among you is able to add 1 hour to your life by worrying? And about your clothing, why are you so worried? Pay attention to the lilies in the field and how they grow. They do not labor, they don't weave cloth. But I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his glory clothed himself like one of these. Now, if the grass in the field, which is here today and then tossed in the furnace tomorrow, is clothed this way by God, won't he make sure that he clothes you all who have so little trust? So then, don't be worried by saying, what will we eat? Or what will we drink? Or what will we wear for clothing? For the nations constantly seek all this stuff. For your Father in the skies knows all that you need. Rather, seek first for the kingdom of God and do right by God, and all these things will be added to you. So then, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow can worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Be generous today and give $1. We'll see you at worship night tonight. Thank you for being here. You're dismissed.